super pumped to welcome the amazing Trisha to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be chatting with you.
This is going to be great. And I can already tell. So if you're not watching on YouTube, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. But behind her, there is a picture and it says choose joy. And that is literally like, that is my like, that's my MO. Like, that's my thing, because learning that I could choose joy was the thing that switched everything for me, because I didn't know. So yeah. I just already know this is going to be so good. So before I get to gushing too much, why don't we just introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Great. Okay. So my name is Trisha, and I have been divorced a couple of years. I was in a long-term marriage just about 25 years, and then have known this person about 33 of my 45 years. So long-term relationship that went really south. And so we have 3 children together that are, of course, total joy and blessings and all of that. But I really wanted to start telling my story, not because of I'm not trying to like disparage my ex or anything like that, but just to find commonality with other women who are in a similar position. It is a hard spot to be in. And I feel like, when you've been there, you know how hard it is. So yeah, I'm just starting to try and tell this story so that hopefully that there'll be somebody who can, be encouraged, get some measure of help out of it.
And that right there, there's so much beauty in everything you just shared, because not that it's a good thing that we went through it, but that feeling of knowing that we're not alone can literally be life-saving, because all of those voices in our head tell us that we're alone. And that is the most dangerous thing when we stay isolated. So I don't take it lightly when someone is so like open and willing to come and share so openly about their story, because that connection, because you might say something that I haven't said before, and all of a sudden someone goes, oh my gosh, I'm really not alone. So that is I think that's really cool, and I'm just so grateful that you're so willing to be open and share. So when someone signs up to be on the podcast, that sounds so weird. It sounds like I'm talking about like a volleyball team, but like when you fill out the form to be on the podcast, you answer some questions. And the thing that you mentioned that I really like to emphasize is the fact that you mentioned that you tried to leave 5 times before you actually had the courage to leave. And on average, it takes survivor victims 7 to 11 times before they leave. And I don't know how much of my content you've been following, but something that I'm really big on is stop asking the victims why they didn't leave. And because there's so much. So why don't we start there, those 5 times, and what the breaking point was?
I tried to leave 5 times. I was married for a really long time. I was committed to staying married. I knew what I was doing when I got married. I was fully invested in that. And so when all of these things began to transpire, it was very, I don't even know if astounding is the right word, but stunning, I think. And I kept trying to, I knew instinctively that what was happening was wrong. And I knew that it was hurting myself and my kids, but it was really hard to leave. And I really, really wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt every time. I really wanted to have that relationship work for a lot of reasons, primarily for my kids. I was home for many years and didn't work outside of my home. And I was terrified. So, there was a lot that was happening. And every time I would, attempt to get up the courage to leave, there would be some measure of I'm sorry, some measure of this won't happen again, something, that felt somewhat corrective. And it was just enough, it was just enough in the moment for me to think, well, maybe this can work. Maybe this can work. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I just, I will change my behavior and I will do X, Y, and Z. And that went on for a long time, many years, probably a full decade, that things were really, really bad. And the breaking point was, let me back up for a second. At some point in the middle there, I had family that got involved, which, for part of it was really wonderful for me. It was something I kept kind of hidden for a long time. It was, very secretive, and there was a great, I don't want to say affront, but there were many good things about our family and about our relationship. There was enough good that we kind of, could get along with, with other people, and it didn't seem like there was all that much that was happening. But there was a physical altercation that happened really early one morning, and it wasn't the first time that there had been physical interaction, but it was the first time that he left bruises on me. And I remember thinking, I was so stunned, again, so stunned. And I remember thinking, like, I can't keep it in. I have to tell somebody. So a few months went by, and I did eventually tell my parents what was happening. And of course they were stunned as well, but they got involved, tried to be supportive, tried to be encouraging, but really wanted me to leave, just pack your things and go. And it was super hard for them to understand why that was so complicated. And so they were involved for a while. And then at one point, my mom said to me, like, I feel like this is like watching somebody drown. Like, I can't be involved in this anymore. And, again, I don't fault her or, my family for doing that. I know that it is hard to watch from the outside too. But that kind of left me in a position again, where I tried to leave after that even, but then you're completely alone. So, so this just went on, and there was an affair, multiple issues with other women, eventually. And my physical self was, well, I had all kinds of physical things happening, in response to the stress and all of that. And I had a doctor who, I would see every year on a regular basis. And she would say to me, like, what are you doing? Like, she knew that things were hard and that things were bad, not necessarily the full extent, but she looked at me that last year and she said, like, what are you doing? This is your one, your one life, your one body. Are you sure? Are you sure what you're doing is the best thing? And so, I had that going on in my head, and I could see, all the things that were happening with my kids and the damage that was being done there. And, when and I had heard that before, when the time is right, you will know. And I hadn't really had that before, where I was always second guessing myself. But I came to a point, I was confronting him on a particular issue. And it's almost like I had kind of had an out of body experience. Like, I saw myself from the outside, and just within that conversation, I knew, like, this is never going to change. And I did not look back after that. I knew if that particular issue at that time, I knew if that didn't get resolved, I was going to leave and I was not going to look back, and I did not. So I finally did, but it took, it took a number of years. It took a lot of damage. And when I knew and I was confident that it was time, then I was able to do that. So, but it was a long time coming.
I think it is so important for stories like yours to be really heard, not to take away from anyone's at all, but especially when there are kids involved and when you don't leave right away, because there's so much tied in and there's so much that people don't understand. And in fairness, there's no real way to understand it when you're not in it. Because like the biggest thing that I share, it's like you can't make logical sense with someone whose brain is not acting logically. Like on a logical level, we are aware that it's not okay. But there's all our biochemistry, our brain, our lives. As mothers, we're looking around like there's so much working against us. And the fact that you left at all, like, I think needs to be celebrated. Like literally like a whole party. Like the biggest thing that I regret not doing is not having a divorce party. Like I so wish that I would have. There's so there's so much tied in. And if it's okay for me to ask, because again, just normalizing this conversation, when there are kids involved, it can be extra. Once you're on the outside, it's easy to look back and go, okay, I needed to leave for my kids. But when we're not in that mindset, we stay for our kids. So what was that whole process like when there's, 3 kids to consider versus, just yourself packing everything up in a car?
Yeah. Kids are an additional layer, and they, it makes everything more complicated when you're not just thinking about your own safety. But honestly, I was terrified. I was terrified to leave. I had no ability to, I did eventually pick up a part-time job. I hadn't finished my degree. I was terrified. I felt like I was going to be homeless. I wondered how I was going to take care of my kids. And, I just kept trying to do battle because I thought, well, I don't know what that damage looks like. Like, I understand what's happening here and this is terrible, but perhaps it'll be worse, when we're separated. And, and then you're trying to co-parent with somebody who is very difficult, to be in a relationship with. And, one of the times that I left, we got really close to being divorced, and I was awarded full physical custody of my kids. And it was the one time I saw him cry, regarding things of that nature. And I remember feeling like a little validated. I don't even know if that's the right verbiage, but a little validated, like, somebody else thinks I'm capable and that this is the best thing too. And I remember being really encouraged by that and feeling like maybe I can do it. And at that time I had my family's help as well. But again, there was just enough of a promise to, that it would be different. And so I backtracked on that. But there was a lot of damage done to my kids, a lot of damage. There was, especially my oldest took a lot of, not necessarily physical hits, but emotional hits. And, I felt like I was always standing in the middle of damage being done and trying to be that middle person to protect the kids. And it's very confusing because, there are a lot of things that are, good. It's not like every single thing in your environment is bad, so it gets to be very confusing in your head. Like, well, maybe this is, maybe this is sufficient. Maybe this isn't as bad. And you kind of talk yourself in and out of that with kids. But, of course, now I see it quite differently. I feel like, maybe my kids would have been protected in a different way had they had, you know, space away from that kind of environment and that relationship. But I just did not have the strength to do it. So I had, you know, especially my oldest, I had support from my kids, and especially as they got older, they started to see a lot more. So that part worked in my favor. But when they were a little bit smaller, it was very hard. There's a lot of alienation going on. There was a lot of you know, just dysfunction, and it's confusing. I didn't want to lose my kids. I guess that's the bottom line. I felt like I was going to lose them, and I was terrified. So
That
it's complicated.
I I only have one child, and I was not with my ex for nearly as long, but I relate so much to what you're saying, because that fear of having your child taken from you is the worst fear. And I have to be careful about how I talk about this, but that is something that I will never say I know how someone feels, but that fear alone taught me so much, because I was able to empathize in a way that I couldn't before. Because before I even became fully aware of everything that was going on inside of me, I didn't understand why people stayed. At the time, I didn't understand that I was a victim either. But like I didn't understand it until it came to that fear of, I'm so afraid to say anything because I'm afraid I'm going to have my child taken from me. I'm afraid I'm not going to be there at all. And if I'm not there at all, oh my gosh. So I just want to say to you, to every parent that has gone through this, I commend you, because you saw what had happened and you realized you had to take that risk. Not in spite of, or not that, but just because you had to do what was best for your kids. And I think that ultimately is so powerful, because you show your kids what it means to demand respect. And you show your kids that the cycle is ending with you, and you're not passing that on. And there's so much to be said for a badass, powerful mom to say, I'm not going to allow this, and you're not going to allow this, and we're going. So
Yeah.
I just think you're absolutely incredible, and there's so much strength.
Thanks for saying that. Thank you. Yeah, you know what I didn't know then that I know now is that once I stepped out of that dynamic between my ex and my kids, of course they were older, so I'm, you know, they need a different kind of protection, you know, as they get to be young adults versus small children and things like that. But I didn't realize that once I stepped out of the middle of that, there were going to be some hurts, you know, of course, but they would then be able to recognize more, you know, what was actually happening. You know, before there were so many things that, you know, were never spoken of. There were things I was not telling my kids this was happening or this, or but as they got older and I kind of, you know, I left and I stepped out of that, then they began to see like, you know, yeah, this is a very difficult person to be in a relationship with, you know, yeah, then those kind of things became more understandable for them. So it does make its way back around with kids, you know, they do, you know, you are who you are, and your kids do end up knowing the truth. So I didn't realize that at the time though. I kept thinking, you know, that the dynamic was gonna be different, but no, they know the truth. They know the truth. So I guess I use that for encouragement for other people, you know, that even though it seems like, you know, you may have lost your kids in the process, or you know, your kids don't really understand or taking sides or whatever, eventually they do see when you are consistent and reliable and careful and all of those things, they begin to see the difference. But I had to step out of it first, and I didn't really realize that at the time.
And that right there carries so much weight, because us as moms, as parents in general, but typically my listenership is women, so typically it's moms, don't come at me. But
Yeah.
in general, us as women, we carry all of that guilt for not only what happened to us and not only all of those thoughts, because we know we should have left sooner, and we know we should have done this, we should have done that. We don't need people adding to it. That's another side tangent, but dear God, it pisses me off. But there's also this guilt of our kids and their lives and what's going to happen when we're no longer here. What traumas are we inflicting? What are we not doing? Like,
Yeah.
is there a right answer? And knowing that they will see the truth, it's something that for a long time I was so sick of hearing, because I was like, well, that's great for the future, but right now this is what it is, and this is how he's seeing it. But as irritating as it can be, and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I don't want to hear. Sometimes I just want someone to hold me while I cry and get pissed about the situation. But knowing that they will grow up and they will see the truth and they are going to turn around and thank us for making the decision that we did is, selfishly for me, it's so good to hear that from someone else who has been through it. But also it's so comforting for those who are going through it and knowing that they're not alone. They didn't screw up their kids permanently and all of this stuff. Like, there's so, like, just adding all the kids to it, it just adds a whole other layer of all of the guilt that we carry. Not to take away anything from anyone who's been through it and doesn't have kids, but there's a whole other layer of connection that people don't understand. And I know for me, something that I'm processing is that, and I don't know, maybe I'm going to forever be processing it because I've been processing for years now, but like, I am never going to be completely free of the other person. Like, people say, oh, it's only until my son's 18, but not really. Not really, because like, if there is a football game and he does want his dad there, I can't just not, I'm not going to be the person that's not going to show up, like, unless it's like for a safety reason. But like, so if you don't mind, if we could just kind of just touch on how you're processing that, because I know for me, I don't know the right answers. I don't really know what it's like. And not to say that anyone has the right answer, but it's something, I guess, for me, I haven't had anyone to really have that discussion with who gets it.
You mean as far as kids and that ongoing relationship?
Yes.
For me, surprisingly, I thought, again, you know, you're thinking before and after is so different, but I thought when I left that it would give my ex the opportunity to step in and be a good parent. I thought it would be his opportunity to focus on our kids, you know, to invest in that. That was my mindset. I thought, you know, when I got divorced, I wasn't thinking like, I'm going to get remarried, I'm going to do this. My sole focus essentially was like, I'm going to have a solid relationship with my kids. I'm going to be invested in their lives, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. So I assumed that would be the same thing for him. But really, that's not what happened at all. In our case, he turned around and was married very, very quickly, created a whole new dynamic, knew somebody about 7 weeks, and just crazy, like crazy. That the crazy continued, you know, and again, it's another indication, like when you step out of it, you can really begin to see, you know, how somebody functions. But, you know, so was married to somebody else, created all kinds of wounding for, our kids in that situation, and unfortunately is estranged from, I would probably say estranged is a fair word, from 2 of our 3 kids. So we haven't had to do a lot of, you know, shared parenting, you know, at this point. You know, he's not essentially not really involved with the kids and what's happening. So again, super disappointing, super hard. We have had a couple of times when we've had to engage with each other, and it hasn't been great. I have to be honest with you. It has not been great. So I probably am not a great person to to speak to that, because I really haven't had a lot of co-parenting experiences with him. It is very hard, it's very hard to hear things that are hard for my kids, and how he interacts with them. But I really do try and stay as much removed from that as I possibly can. And again, when I have to speak with him, it's very rare, but I try to be truthful and helpful to him with stuff about the kids. And that's really about the best I can do. But it's hard. It does not look at all like what I thought it would. Again, I had this picture in my head of what it would be, and it has turned out very differently.
I just want to speak to just your openness and vulnerability in that, because there's so much, and that's the whole reason that I wanted to start having these conversations, because there's a lot of there's a lot of curated on the outside of recovery. There's the pretty parts, but there's the already out of it, and there's enough. And I'm glad people are talking about that and showing the possibility. And that's something that I try to do. But also, this messy middle is where a lot of people are at, and they don't even know that outside of it is possible. And something that you wrote in the form that I think is so beautiful is that the advice that you would give to someone who just got out of the abusive relationship is to begin dreaming about the life they want for themselves and their children. And you also said the reason why you want to share your story is so that other women know that they're not alone and that their life can be peaceful and joyful again. And that, man, it's 2 sentences, and it made me emotional. Oh, okay, we're not going to cry, because if I cry, I blubber, and then no one understands me. But so what was it like for you to begin to dream bigger, to dream outside of the bubble that these abusive relationships put us in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, very surprising, because divorce is awful. My experience with divorce has been terrible. And we lived in the same house while we were divorcing, so there was a lot that was happening, a lot of layers to that. But it was really when I finally got away, I finally got into my own space, and gave my body some time, some rest and things like that. And I started to feel that again, joy, a renewed sense of peace. And I don't even want to say it, maybe it was the living alone, but maybe just being safe. Maybe it was just being safe. I started to feel safe and peaceful, and wow, left to my own devices, my life is pretty peaceful. I live pretty peacefully. And again, new information to me, because I've been in this environment that was so chaotic and so full of conflict that I didn't even know anymore, what my life would look like outside of that. So yeah, I began to really get excited about now I'm starting to feel better. My physical self starts to feel better. What do I want to? I felt like the world was before me, and it's not like, I have all the money or all the, freedom. I worked a couple jobs for a long time, and it was work and it was effort, but I really had the ability to think about what I wanted my life to look like. And that's exciting. It's one of the things I get the most excited about when I'm talking with girlfriends and other women that, we come into contact with each other. I get super excited about thinking what do you want your life to look like? What is it that really blows you up inside and inspires you? And what do you dream about? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Where do you want to live? How do you want your life to look like? That is exciting. I mean, that is really exciting stuff. And I think when you get out of toxicity and all of that, it takes a while, but you can begin again. And man, I'm so grateful for it. I'm just so grateful. So yeah, that's why I always, always encourage people to think like, this is your life, yeah, this has not been great. This has not been great, but here we are. And what are we going to do with this one, with this one life that you have? So very exciting.
One of the things that I love about these conversations, and I know that some people have had to remain anonymous for safety, so I don't want to take anything away from them, but there is something so special when the camera is on and I get to see your face, because you can hear, and the listeners, I know y'all heard it too, but your whole body language just shifted and you just sat back and the smile on your face, like listening to you talk about the possibility of your life moving forward. And outside of that, that is something that I've grown to appreciate in a new light, because for me, for so long, I didn't even know that was possible. And then once I did realize it was possible, I saw that so many other people didn't realize it was possible. So
Yeah.
someone else get so excited about just like what you want your life to look like, it just lights me up. And just your whole face just it was, anyway, I feel like I sound weird gushing about someone's body language, but it's so cool to me to see. Cool, I need a better vocabulary. I need to like have a thesaurus with me because I don't have the right words. But just knowing that you went through what you went through for so long, for such a chunk of your life, and then to be able to go from that to now being like, there's so much potential and I can choose joy and I can go after it. It's so, seeing that possibility and that potential is just what makes me emotional, because there's so many people that don't even think it's possible for them.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. And when you're right, and when you're in the middle of all of that, like you only have so much emotional capacity, right? Like when you're battling a person and you're trying to take care of your kids and you have physical ramifications for all of that and stress, and a lot of times people are working. I mean, there's a lot that's happening. So the very idea that there's this life ahead outside of this, it doesn't really occur to you right at the time. But it is there. And I always say, like, you always hear that, like, dream big, all of that. And I think that's true. But I get, like, my dreams are like about little spaces. Like I have a dream about having two spaces, two small spaces, one here and one somewhere by the ocean, right? Not a mansion, not a, this or that, but just these little, like a little cottage here, a little cottage there. And I say that because our dreams don't have to be even just like so outrageous, or so they can be big. But what is it that makes your heart excited? What is it that, that is thrilling for you? And when you can set that out in front of you and try, navigate, like, how can I make this happen for me? That's such a thrill. That's such a thrill. And it looks so different for all of us, which is the beauty of it. What do you want to go for? I love it. I love it.
I love that you brought up the reality that your big dreams aren't necessarily the big dreams that we think of. And that is something that I did not fully comprehend probably until 6 months ago. And I say fully comprehend, Lord knows I got a whole lot of limiting beliefs I'm still working through. But like, for me, I didn't even know that dreaming outside of my bubble was possible for me. I thought it was great for everybody else. It was great for you, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't possible. And then then when I did have those bigger dreams, I felt guilty about those dreams. But there's no dreams that are bad or wrong or insignificant, as long as you're not hurting nobody. Like
right.
I do have dreams of owning a massive, like, plantation style home with a lot of land. And my son and I, like, we're passionate about animals. We want to have a rescue farm. And I also want to have an RV and travel. Like, but if that doesn't light your heart up, don't use that as a big dream. Like, right. I know I want a big house because I also want to supply jobs for people to take care of it. I want to employ people who may not otherwise have an opportunity to be employed to work there. But that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that needs to be Trisha's dream or Caitlin's dream or Susan's dream.
Right.
They're all valid
Right.
and they're
Right.
all possible.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like, that's the beauty of it. If we were all going for the same thing, like how boring would that be anyway, right? Like, there's a lot of life out there. There are a lot of options. You know, if you love to travel, make that your thing. You know, if you love to work with women, you know, coaching might be your thing and your dream. You know, I love the ocean, so I want to live, you know, somewhere by the ocean someday in some little tiny beach, you know, cottage or whatever. So, you know, it's the beauty of it. I love it. But, you know, I love engaging, you know, women in that realm. Like, what can life look like? It can be, you know, it's not what you thought maybe, but it can really be good. It can really be good. It's not over. It's not done. You can heal and you can move into something that's really great. So that is very exciting to me. And I'm glad you have big dreams. Those sound incredible.
I was not expecting the conversation to go this way, but I am so like, I have not met anyone else who also just shares like this energy of excitement for this stuff. And so now I'm just like trying to stay on track and focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is a big transformation that a lot of people,
Yeah.
and again, I know I keep saying it, but there's someone out there who is still listening to this right now saying that's great for her, but it's not for me. Because I used to be that person. I would cheer everyone else on, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So you went from this place of being in this relationship for 25 years. I think you said it was 25 years.
Yeah, just married just about 25 years, together more than that, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So yeah, so like there's this all this time that you spent, and there's this kids, and then there was the transition of getting out, and then there was this transition of finding yourself and what you wanted to do. What has that been like? This is such a broad question, but what has it been like to be where you're at now and to look back at that process? What's like, what does your brain do? I guess is the question.
Yeah. That's a great question. So I feel like the thing that I have done that's been the most beneficial is I've really given myself time. I think the tendency is to like get out of that situation or that relationship and, you know, to get right back into something. And I'm not, you know, that may work for people that's not necessarily right or wrong, but for me, space, you know, giving myself space to learn. There was a lot I will be, you know, continue to be processing through. I, you know, met a lot of people in the last year. I've learned a ton. But I really honestly just giving myself space and time. And I'm not a super extroverted person anyway. So part of, you know, my healing, part of my energy comes from like alone time. You know, so doing that, you have to do the thing that is healing for you. And, you know, if you're somebody who needs a lot of people, perhaps the thing is to get involved in some, you know, obviously COVID has changed things, but, you know, community groups and this and that, and to fill some of that need. But time has been to my advantage. And I get a little greedy about it actually, because it's been so wonderful that I feel very much like, I don't know if I'm, you know, maybe I'll continue down this road and at some point I'll be willing or ready to invest with somebody else. But I get pretty greedy about my time. Like I want to spend my time on things that give me energy. I want my relationships with my girlfriends to be good. I want to have time for that. I'm in grad school. I got into grad school, and so that has been, yeah, thank you. But that has been my mindset, like just space, rest, do the things that, you know, that bring you energy and joy, and stay away from all the you know, the drama that is in, you know, or was in that other relationship. which is really important because I think it can be very hard to separate yourself from what is happening. You know, like you said, you're always connected to somebody. So separating from that can be pretty hard. But it's very necessary, you know, cutting that part off and not engaging with that really saves your energy and your emotional strength and all of that. So that's pretty important. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Oh, that was so good. And honestly, I am so grateful that you said that you are a bit greedy with your time, because
yeah,
like I have not met anyone else who understands. Like, I am not the spontaneous friend. I am not the like, if it was up to me, I'd have the next 3 years planned out in my Google Calendar. I want to know every minute because I want to get as much out of life as possible. And the minute that just passed, I'm never going to get that back ever again. Like, I can make $5. I can make $100. They're printing more money every day. But oh, it's all digital now, whatever. But like, I'm never going to get that time back. And that is something that when like that a lot of people, and that I have found, particularly with survivors that I've worked with, is they struggle with time as a currency, as something that they can protect. Because they feel like it's the people-pleasing nature. We want to give it to everybody else and never and all that. But it took me a long time to be okay with being openly stingy and very boundaries like around my time, because I felt so guilty saying no. But now the people that don't like it, they don't stick around long, because they don't understand that like I'm not just going to change what I want because it's convenient for you. Like, no, if I have my nothing time planned out, it's not that I'm free. That's my nothing time planned out for me. So what? Oh, I totally lost my train of thought. I was so excited to ask you something. Is it going to come back?
Well, I wanted, while you're thinking of it, I wanted to say something. Like, when you talked about, when you just said that about having your time for nothing, I was laughing because a girlfriend and I were talking, and I said something like, you know, this time works for me. Can you get together at that time? And she said, no, I have something scheduled. And I said, oh, okay. And then a couple of days later we were talking, and she said, yeah, I scheduled time to swing on the swing and read my book or whatever. And we laughed about it, but
that makes me so happy.
I loved it. Like, I loved it. And that somebody can have enough care for themselves and to say, you know, like, I love spending time with you, but I'm going to schedule this for myself. And I love it. It's good. Boundaries are good. They are good. They protect us and they protect other people. So I'm all about that. I'm not really great at it all the time, but I'm getting better.
It's a skill that we all have to work at. And that is so beautiful that in today's day and age, she bucked the entire system and said, no, I want to schedule time on a swing. Like that's such a beautiful thing. And like, my time on the swing is playing video games. I'm such a nerd. I'm surrounded by Star Wars and video game stuff. Like, that's my life. But even though I preach it, it's so hard for me to take time to sit and play video games and do things I enjoy, or even just sit and read a book, because I'm always like, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. Like this weekend, my son's gone, and it's when like I book. Well, it's also because it's the only time it's quiet, so I try to like plan as much as I can. But like last night, I was like, man, Axel's not home. Maybe I'll play a video game. But I was like, no, I need to work because he's not home. And I woke up this morning so drained because I didn't take any time to decompress and to just exist. It's so important. And I gotta get better at it. We all can get better at it, but I think that is so important for everybody, but particularly, especially for someone going through their recovery journey, because you're like, we act like it's no big deal. Like, oh, recovery, mental health is physical health. Why? Because it's your brain, this organ that impacts the rest of your body, that tells it to work. Like when you're healing, you're literally rewiring connections and changing the makeup of your brain. And we're acting like that's nothing. Like, we're going to be tired. And if we don't take time to rest, just like you can work out every day in the gym, but you're going to rip your muscles to a point of injury. And then you're going to be stuck on the couch.
If
we don't give it space to heal and recover, we're just causing more damage.
Yeah. It's 100% true. And I don't think we really know, I didn't know when I was in the situation when I was still married. I did not realize how much damage I was doing to my physical self. You just are in that mode. You're a parent, things have to get done. You're taking care of other people and all the things. And I did not know. I did not know how badly my physical self was suffering. Now I look back and I had internal bleeding. I had a number of things that were taking place. And I just did not, you're just surviving. So you're not making the connections, but we don't realize how much time may be necessary for recovery, and I think when I finally got into my own place and it was quiet and I had the ability to sleep, uninterrupted, and like I just slept and slept, because I did not realize the amount of recovery that my body was really requiring. So yeah, we just aren't always aware of how much damage has been done and then how long our recovery will take. It takes longer than we think, a lot of times. So giving ourselves space to do that is super important.
Sorry, I thought I felt a sneeze
Oh,
coming, so I was
you're
trying to
totally fine.
not sneeze on camera. But that I am so glad that you brought that up. I'm so glad that you talked about this. I think I'm like leaving chunks of words. My brain's going faster than my mouth can move. But I have found like with my clients is like there's a point where they're feeling really good and then they're just exhausted and they can't figure out why. And it's
Yeah.
because like when you look back on what your biology is doing, what your brain is doing, what your body is doing, it makes complete sense. So
Yeah.
when we're in this time of choosing healing and choosing recovery, you're going to be tired because your body is trying to repair itself and find a new normal. Because when you're in the abusive relationship, it finds equilibrium in the chaos and in the toxicity that's going on. Then it has to
Yeah.
find a whole new equilibrium, and we expect it to be done in 2 days. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, we don't really recognize. I totally agree. Yeah, it takes what it takes to recover. And I think that is something again, like I did not realize the extent of that before I left. I just really didn't know. But if I could say that to somebody, and I have girlfriends who have, more recently gone through divorce, and that's what I say. Like you're going to need time. You're going to need time, and you don't know it yet, but I'm telling you, you're going to need some time for your body and your mind, to recover. And that could be 6 months. It could be 2 years, we're all so different. But we aren't really used to caring for ourselves in that way. We've been used to just surviving. And so it's totally different mindset, but so important. Yeah.
this is a little, I mean, I guess this whole conversation's a personal question, but just based off of what you were saying earlier and how you're speaking, do you work with women
What's so funny is that it's on my brain all the time. But I feel like I continue to have women who come into my life, friends of friends. I've been getting calls, sometimes I get calls from people, or they'll say, somebody told me that you had been through this, or, girlfriends from long ago. So do I in some sort of formal manner? I really don't, but I would love to. I would love to. I don't know if there's such a thing as I don't know what kind of coach that would be, or what kind of, I don't know, a girlfriend. I don't know what that would be, but I sure would love it, because it brings me so much joy, just so much joy, walking with women through divorce and then recovery from it. So I would love to do it. It's always on my brain. Like, what can I do? Can I do this in an official way? But not yet, to answer your question, not yet.
The reason I bring that up is because just the way you speak and the way you're holding yourself, you're speaking as if you've spoken to like a group of 1,000 women before. Like you have just this air of strength and confidence about you.
Aw.
And I will say that that's how so I ran from doing what I do for a long time. I knew like whatever anyone believes in, everyone's allowed to believe in what they want to believe in. I personally believe in God, and I felt in my mind that God had been telling me since I got out of my first physically abusive relationship at 17 that I was supposed to share my story. And I ran from it. I ran
Mm-hmm.
for a long
Mm-hmm.
time, got myself into some messy situations, but I started sharing my story in bits on a fitness Instagram account, like just little pieces of what was going on in my brain. And all of a sudden, I would be getting 5 to 15 DMs a day from women going, wait,
Wow.
my brain works like that. Have you gone through this? And it was as if
Yeah.
my brain was copy pasted into all of these messages. And then January of last year, and I was like, okay, all right, I'm doing it. Fine, God, like I'm doing it. I'm all in. And
Raise my hands. I'm
it was
giving up
like,
the fight.
it was the best decision. I'm not gonna lie, it's been hard because it forces me to do
Yeah.
a lot of work on myself before I can even, help anybody else. But, and this is not what this episode is for. I'm not supposed to be like coaching you to do all this, but
Right.
there is so much, and there's so much power in all of our voices, in our story. The first thing the abuser does is tear us down and tear down our sense of self-worth and our confidence, because once they have that, they can get away with murder. Because once they
Yeah.
do that, we don't believe that we're worthy of more. I mean, heck, this is a confidence from the ground up podcast. Like I've got a worthy clothing line. Like this is why worth and confidence is important to me. But you have a way of sharing and of speaking that is going to resonate with so many people. And
Mm.
I know that the way you're speaking, I could have used someone like you when I was going through my divorce. Someone
Mm.
who came to me without judgment, without any preconceived ideas, of just showing up and sitting with me and guiding me through
Yeah.
it. I didn't have that. And I had support, but it was a different kind of support. And I just
Yeah.
know that there's someone that could so use what you're going to do. And I just hope that you lean into it, because I, anyway, I'm not trying to get weird, but I feel it. Like there's, uh,
No,
so
I
needed.
so appreciate what you're saying. That's very kind of you. I also have been fighting, sharing this story for a long time. Um, I'm not tech savvy at all, so I have no idea like how I would even go about that. But there was just some little part of me that thought, you know what, if I just put something out there, like, just something, it helps me kind of relieve, or I don't want to say relieve, but like release some of that, like the stuff that I have going on in my head, and the things I wish I could say, to people. So I'm trying to move a little bit in that direction. You are 1,000 times more savvy than I am. So you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job in that area. I'm very impressed.
Well, thank you. But just know that like it took time to get here. Like I was a computer nerd kid growing up. Like I was the only girl in the tech team at elementary school. We'd take apart the computers and clean them. Like back in the MySpace days, I knew HTML backwards and forwards. I could code a whole thing. It was now all of that knowledge, it doesn't, none of it
Mhm.
exists. None of that technology even.
Right, right, right.
So I've had to relearn it all. But I I just know that there's so much power in something, like we think of it, it's so close to us that we don't think it's anything special. But the things
Yeah,
that you say could hit someone and it could literally save their life. Like
yeah.
it was someone saying the right thing at the right time to me that helped me change my mind and continue living. So like
Hmm.
it's so powerful. And I don't say that to be dramatic, but it maybe I am, I don't know. But it's so true and it matters. And I don't know. I'm not gonna push anyone to doing something that they're not ready for, because everybody's brain works in their own time. But if
Yeah.
you ever want like guidance or support or resources, I am more than happy to help. whether it's, I mean, I'm not so great on Twitter. I'm new. I feel like an old lady on Twitter. I don't know how to work it really, but I mean, Instagram and TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, podcasting, whatever you want to do, I'm more than happy to help if you want it. The offer is there. You don't have to take
That's awesome. That is so awesome. You know, I love that. I thank you so much for that. I'll probably take you up on it actually. But I am a huge, like, I don't want to say proponent, like that seems like a weird word, but a huge proponent of women taking care of other women. And you know, I go back, I have to give this part of my story some credit. I suspected that several years ago that my spouse was, there's some things that were happening, and I suspected that my spouse was was unfaithful. And through this whole series of events, I was able to I was able to see that in his phone that he had a bunch of women's numbers. And I was so panicked, like beside myself, panic stricken or whatever. And I didn't really know what exactly to do, but I called every one of those numbers and I left messages, and I'm sure I sounded like a total insane, whatever, crazy person. But one of those women called me back, and she didn't have to. I think about her all the time because she didn't have to call me back. She didn't have to like give me any information. Um, but she called me back and she laid everything out for me. And I respect her so much. Like, it was the first, I don't want to say it's the first example, but it was such a great example of, you know, she had no idea that my ex was married and all that. So she's an innocent party in that situation. But she talked with me, talked me through that situation, gave me all kinds of information and helpful information. And then she, at the end, you know, we talked for a couple hours, and then at the end she was like, you know, I don't know what you're going to do, and these are, maybe you ought to consider, these are some of your options and things like that. And she was such a like wonderful, like, I'm just in love with women taking care of other women. It was like, that was amazing. I could not thank her enough, you know, for doing that for me. And you know, and then when I left, I had women, you know, friends and people in my life that helped me pack, people that kept, you know, stored my things. I was locked out of my house one night in the middle of the night and escorted away, you know, from a police officer, and had nowhere to go. And I remembered that a girlfriend had given me the code to her garage, you know, I don't know, weeks back or something. And, you know, went there in the night, at middle of the night, and stayed there for what, 6, 8 weeks, something like that. So I just have, I'm so big on women taking care of other women because I have been the recipient of so much of that, you know. So we are good for each other. You know, we can be a huge amount of support and encouragement. And I'm really into it. I'm all about it. You know, I want it for my girls, my children, and I want it for myself, and I want it for other people. And you know, we have a lot to offer each other.
I like it, that makes me so happy because for whatever, well, I say for whatever reason, we all dang know well the reason, but I'm not going to do that whole spiel right now. But we are taught that other women are competition and that we should
Yeah.
constantly be fighting each other. And even though like Mean Girls, I love that movie. It's friggin' hilarious, but it's also
Yeah.
it's a dramatized version, but that's the reality. Like, that's what happened in high school. I got to
Yeah.
watch these groups of girls that didn't even really like each other, but they would band together to like talk crap about everybody else
Yeah.
and always tear each other down. And the thing that I've never understood is that when someone's boyfriend cheats, they get mad at the other woman. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like if she was aware, okay, fine, be mad. But
Yeah.
why aren't we mad at the penis that's jumping into between a bunch of different legs? Like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
are we not like getting banding together? Like, one of my favorite, I don't know the usernames. I don't pay attention to usernames. I know their face, but on TikTok, I found this story of these two women where they found out that they were dating the same person. And initially
Mm-hmm.
their plan was to go after each other, but they actually became best friends and then broke up with him together. They both showed up, broke up together, and now they're best friends and have been for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, that.
Right. Right.
Oh,
Let's put the focus where the focus belongs, right? Like, let's
yes.
put the blame where the blame belongs. Yeah. And it's so often that's such a deflection, right? Of like, it's easier to be angry at the other woman than it is to deal with the conflict, with somebody who's, really difficult. So, it's understandable that why it happens, but man, it doesn't have to happen. And I know of it might be the same women, but I know of a couple women who had the same experience. And they ended up like on a trip. They ended up traveling together for like a month or something. They broke up with the guy, and then one of the girls was like, "Hey, he's gone. Do you want to travel with me?" And she was like, "Yeah." So they, I'm on this travel site, and so they traveled together. And it's like, that's awesome. Like if that crummy stuff is going to happen, like let's flip the script, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be that old standard of, tearing each other down and all that. So yeah, I love my women, love my girlfriends, and yeah.
That is so beautiful. Like, I can't tell anybody else what to do, obviously, but I'm just saying when this airs, it's going to be October of 2021, and I will go back and update whenever it is the website that Trisha is definitely going to have, because in the near future, when you want to work with her, it will be there. If it's not there, it's because I haven't gotten an update yet. I'm just
well, that's such good. That's so good. That's such good encouragement. I so appreciate that. And I got into grad school, and a part of the reason I got into grad school is because I want to work with women and children, and in that capacity. And that's a few years off, obviously, but it's such a thrill, like to think that I'm going to have the opportunity to do it. So yeah, I'm playing with what you're saying. I'm kind of like doing this dance with it, and I'm like got a little bit of fear and a little bit of, so all of that is happening, but I so appreciate your encouragement on it.
absolutely. I love seeing women step into their potential and stop denying their worth, and then use that to help others. And I don't think, like, and I say this a lot, but no one is entitled to your story. No one is entitled to my story. But I truly believe that if we feel that itch to share it, it's for a purpose and it's for a reason. And for the people who can't share, I think it's so important that those of us who want to and are able to, and I'm not judging anyone who's not there, but if we are, I think it's our responsibility to. Because if we have a voice that we are confident in, or even that we're not confident in completely, but that we want to use, we should. And I know, like, I don't know personally, but I know a handful of divorce coaches that are super successful and they love what they do. And that's an area that not a lot of people want to talk about. And the fact that you mentioned, like, you love helping and guiding women through it, like, you're a rare breed and you're so needed in the world. So
that's so sweet of you.
My soapbox, I'll hang it up, I'll put it back on the wall. But
yeah,
I am so grateful for you. I hope that we talk together or work together in the future. I love your energy, and I've loved this conversation. Where, if at all, is there a place currently where people can connect with you if they want to? If not, I can be the liaison if anyone reaches out, but I want
well, I do have a little tiny Instagram. It's not much, but it's called A Safe Place to Land. So I have that, and then of course I'm on Facebook. And I'm playing with some other things, but yeah, that's really where I'm at. I think I'm easy to find in that way. But I don't know. It's, I have a little bit of an imposter syndrome sort of thing. So, but I'm happy to talk with women and, share share and encourage and on all that. So if I have the opportunity, I would love it for sure. Yeah.
This is for everybody listening. This is not a business development podcast. And I know we're focusing on this, but if you feel fear and if you feel imposter syndrome, congratulations, you're human. Like you're
Right.
officially we're no longer worried that you're a cyborg. We know that you're fully human.
Right. Right.
Fear is there to keep us safe. Just like we're scared of a new normal, we become comfortable in the uncomfortable of abuse because it's what's normal. Even though we don't like it, we know it's going to happen tomorrow and the next day. We know that there's going to be conflict, but outside of that, we don't know. So we stay where we are. So this fear and the imposter syndrome is just your brain going, you might fall on your face, you might hurt yourself, all of this stuff, but you also might build something that changes your life. And that's also scary. My biggest fear isn't failure. My biggest fear is success. And that's something that I am working through. And your girl's been self-sabotaging so much. And I got called out. I did a podcast interview yesterday with a mindset coach. And I got my butt handed to me. Like, I got work. But it's normal. And you are human. And just because those fears exist does not mean that they have to run the show. They can still be there. They have to sit in the back.
Yeah. You know, if fear is what kept me, fear is a liar, right? Fear is a liar. And fear is what kept me in the relationship that I was in for so long. I was literally terrified. And you know, I stumbled my way, I made my way, you know, eventually out of that and was able to push through that. So, you know, I think every time we do that, you know, we get maybe a little better at it. But you're right. It's part of being human. And I think it can be very confusing because fear is also the thing, like you're saying, that frequently keeps us safe. So fear is an indication, right? Like we just have to know where the arrow is pointing, right? Like, is it telling me to move? Is it telling me to stay? And that can be really, you know, hard to navigate, but yeah, definitely fear. And I don't know if you have been watching, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I don't know if you've been watching this week, any of the Gabby Petito, you know, situation that's been on TV. Are you aware of any of that?
I have not dived in deep because I wanted to prepare myself first, but I'm probably going to be doing a YouTube video on it. So I'm going to be diving in tomorrow because I needed to separate myself a bit to know that because I don't want my YouTube channel to just be me screaming at the camera about how horrible society is. So I like to take the time to press.
Right. Yeah. I've been this is such an interesting week to be talking with you because, you know, there's been so much, on the news, you know, about her in that situation. And you can watch, you know, so much of, you know, the, you know, body cam from the cops and different things like that. And it's been super triggering, like super, I don't know, it's brought up all kinds of, like, it's been a reminder of the fear, you know, and, I so sympathize with, women who are in the fear is very real, you know, and like you can see with her and, you know, situations, that you can see news, whatever it is, YouTube videos, her fear, she's terrified. And so I guess I don't want to ever make light of, like, the fear is a really big deal, right? It's it's not something like, oh, just, you know, move your way through it. It can keep you anchored. And you can see that with her and with so many of us. And I remember being in that position. So it's been, interesting to see. And I mean, of course, heartbreaking and all of that, but yeah, the fear is a big deal. It's a big deal.
Fear is, and I'll say, I'm going to save my rant for that YouTube video.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
2 hours, just because I got a lot to say on the whole. But that recognizing and just knowing that fear is there And there's different kinds of fear. And I've talked about this. I can't remember what number it was, but I have an episode where I talk about there's like 3 different types of fear. And there's a type of fear that keeps us from playing in the freeway. Like that's a fear that we want to listen
Mhm.
to. Like
Yeah.
our kids don't have that fear because they don't understand the consequences of chasing a ball into the street. Versus
Yeah.
we know that if we go into the road and there's a bunch of cars, we're going to get hit. But then
Yeah.
there's also the fear that keeps us from looking at a food that's new, and it's scary because we haven't tried that food before. And so we have to recognize what fear we're at, and just that
Yeah.
awareness when we're not taught, and unfortunately, we're not taught this stuff at a young age, and it takes
Mhm.
time. So I am making light of and kind of pushing Trisha a bit as far as like leaning into her calling. I don't know if it's a calling, but I really feel like it's a calling. Like I'm leaning into that because I know I'm not telling her to go and play in the street, right? Like I'm
Of
not going to tell
course. Of
someone.
course.
You have
Yeah.
to learn about and knowing yourself, building up that sense of confidence, knowing who you are is so key because that's what's going to tell you the difference between the fear of starting a new Instagram account or the fear of playing in the freeway. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
those seem like big differences, but those two different things, if you don't know, one fear, a
Mhm.
lack of fear might get you killed. And another
Yeah.
lack of fear might make you bubble boy living, an
Yeah.
isolated life forever. So
Right.
just recognizing and having that conversation with yourself is so powerful. I'm so glad you
Mhm.
brought that up. Like, I truly feel like I could talk to you for probably 4 hours and not even get tired. I am so here for it. So, and I, for the record, love it's a safe place to land, right? Your Instagram.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
include that in the show notes and the show description if you're on YouTube. I love that name. I think it's so beautiful. And it is I never take light, regardless, like I'm making light of it, but regardless of whatever you choose to do with your life, I think it's so beautiful when someone is so willing to come forward and to share what they've gone through because it's not
Mm.
easy. And it's
Yeah.
not lost on me. Like, I am honored to hold this space for people to share. I'm honored to hold this space for you to share whatever it is you need to share, how you share it. And I think it's so beautiful and it's so powerful because not only are you making a declaration where you're taking your life back and you're taking your power back and you're taking your story back, which is something that we try to keep locked away. You're taking your
Yeah.
power back, but you're also giving permission to every other woman out there who's in the situation to reach out and ask for help. You're giving them permission to
Mhm.
share their story. And that can have a ripple effect that is so much bigger than we may ever see. But I
Yeah.
don't take that lightly. So I am so grateful that you came and you spent time with me today. Like, I truly do appreciate it.
Oh my goodness. No, the pleasure was mine. And I was like, when you put that out there that were wanting to talk with different people, I was like, oh my goodness. I just felt like what a great opportunity you're giving other women. And this is huge. I mean, the ability to tell your story. I mean, Karleigh, really. I mean, this is a big deal. You're doing a great service to other women. So I'm just grateful that that you were wanting and willing to chat with me. So I'm thrilled about that.
Well,
You're
thank
doing
you
a
so
great, you're
much.
doing a great work.
That I mean, like, okay, this is the dumb thing about Zoom. Like, I want to just reach through and just hug, and I can't. Like, introvert, like, I truly am an
Yeah.
introvert. Like I said, I'm a gamer, hands down. Like, whatever
Yeah.
stereotype. I shower and I have makeup on right now, but other than that, definitely like the gamer type. But I miss hugs. Like, I miss hugging random people. I miss just like that connection.
Hmm.
I I'm not, I'll just keep gushing back and forth about how great you are. But I'm so grateful for you. I hope one day I will be able to hug you in person. I hope that we stay connected because I am so excited just to see where your story takes you. And
Aw,
I can't wait to talk to you again soon.
yay. That would be great. I will love it. Thank you. Thank you so much.